Here we are again, Gordon.
Fantastic. How are you, sir?
I am delighted to be here tonight with our friends as well watching. Great. I'm really looking forward to tonight.
Absolutely. Isn't it fantastic to be back and back doing some Facebook lives, YouTube lives, and some great whiskies as ever for people to try.
I've just been saying, Gordon, in my head when we're waiting to come on there, that I've had a taste of the first two, obviously, but the third whiskey tonight, I have never tried it, and I wanted to do it live tonight, and I looked over the notes. There's only 2 of these casks at Glengoyne, only 2 in the world. So if you've got the third whiskey, this is so rare. I cannot wait.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're about to be joined with some special guests. But before we go any further, just there's a few people checking in. Bass Voten from Holland is in. We've got Graham Pritchard. We've got Finland calling from Juha-Matti. Good evening. Wiltshire. And even Jordan Hill down the road from me. Jennifer, welcome. And many, many others. Yeah. So welcome to this first of our sort of year of activity, I guess, which is fantastic. So yes. International Whiskey Day. That is one of the reasons we are here, obviously, it is tomorrow, International Whiskey Day. And we did our first Facebook Live last year on International Whiskey Day.
Yes.
It's an amazing day. It's a day tributed to Michael Jackson, the famous whiskey writer. Started in the Netherlands when a whole load of whiskey writers assembled, and it was really a brilliant opportunity to celebrate whiskey and thank Michael Jackson for all the work he did. Gordon, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Sorry.
I was enjoying the recap of International Whiskey Day. I'm just enjoying the Netherlands stories. We've got some Bram in from the Netherlands as well. We'll try and say hello to all these people. But yeah, it was. It's a great, any excuse, Gordon, and it's a wonderful excuse to think of the great Michael Jackson and just to put whiskey where it belongs, as far as you're concerned, right up the top.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, I used to work with Michael, so to Michael, and a great man of whiskey. So let's bring in our guests. So we have 2 very special guests, 2 people who work every day at the distillery and produce the wonderful spirit that we make. So let's bring in Lauren and Blair.
As if by magic. Hey!
Hello. Hi, guys.
How you doing?
We're good, thanks.
Good. How are you, Blair?
Doing well.
You're winning best backdrop. I like it. Nice one. Very good. So, guys, how are you? All well? How's everything going at Glengoyne? And obviously a bit quieter, unfortunately, than it is normally with no guests there. But how are things going production-wise?
Yeah, things have actually been really, really busy this year.
Great.
Yeah, we've been kept busy, so I can't imagine a better way to sort of end the week than tasting some whiskies with you guys, to be honest.
Wow, exactly. And Blair, how about you? How are things in your part of? We'll come back to what you actually do if people aren't aware. But how are things from your perspective? Busy as well? Lots of fillings?
It's been great. It's been honestly one of the busiest years we've had so far since I've been there. But in Glengoyne, it's like your own wee world, your own wee bubble, just away from everything, nice and calm. So it's been great this year, to be honest. Obviously, it's sad to not see the tours and that, but the production side's been it's okay so far.
Yeah, and things are slowly opening up here in Scotland, so we hope we'll be open at some point in the near future, which is, it's what Glengoyne is fabulous at. Great whiskey, of course, but fabulous visitor experience. We hope we get back to some sense of normality. So before we get into a little bit more about what you guys do, I think it would be wrong not to have a whiskey.
You're absolutely right, Gordon. It would be a travesty.
So tonight we're sampling 3 whiskies. We're going to start with the 12-year-old. We're then going to move on to the new Legacy Series Chapter 2. And then we're finishing with a very popular whiskey that just lost out in the Cask of the Moment, the last event we did sort of September time. So This is the Madeira Cask, and I think about 100, 180, 200 lucky people have got a sample of this to try tonight. So we're very excited. But let's start off with a fabulous, fabulous whiskey.
And can I just say, Gordon, this 12-year-old's, you're the odd one out tonight. All three of us have been tour guides. And I have got some tartan trousers. You can have a go when we open up and start doing the tours. And this whiskey we're about to have, is it not right, Blair? Lauren, every tour starts with the 12. Now, why do you think that is?
Every single one.
Yeah, why?
It was actually the first Glengoyne whiskey I ever tried as well. So it's quite,
and what
quite
was,
a special place. Yep.
And what? So when you guys, you've all been tour guides. So as part of your, for want of a word, I was going to say initiation, but as part of your becoming a tour guide, you obviously need to learn the whiskey. So the first time you tasted the 12, what was your thoughts? Lauren,
Delicious.
You go for it.
Yeah.
Delicious.
So I came to Glengoyne, hands up, I wasn't a big whiskey drinker when I first started working there. And the Glengoyne 12-year-old was the first one that we got given on initiation. And I just couldn't believe that I'd wasted so much time not drinking this before, if I'm honest. It was really, really good. It went down so smooth because it's obviously so light and it's not peated for someone like myself who is coming into it not as a whiskey drinker. It was just beautiful and it went down easier than it probably should have done.
I think I call this my every sort of day dram. Blair, what about you? What was your? Were you a whiskey drinker or were you not before you?
Yeah, before starting at the distillery, I wasn't a huge whiskey drinker. Didn't really know what it was and all about it. And it wasn't until being trained as a tour guide you start to learn a little bit more about it. And it was just that one day I was actually setting out the tray of drams that you get welcomed with at the distillery, and it was the tray of 12-year-old. And it was the only time that I stopped, gave it a little bit of time, focused on it, and started to actually think about what I was, smelling or tasting. And I think I was just lucky that I'd had in my hand one of the most accessible drams, for a new whiskey drinker. It's such an easy whiskey, and I think that's what just picked it off for me.
No, absolutely. And I mean, for me, it was the same. I tasted Glengoyne 12 a long time ago as well, even when I obviously wasn't working with Glengoyne, but it was always my sort of local distillery. But Gordon, what about you? Now, I'm guessing you loved it. It's just a stab in the dark.
I dabbled. Gordon, I not only remember it, I remember where I was sitting when on day one, when you get the 12-year-old, you've just got to be as a guest would be. So sit down, have a dram and get taken round on tour. And I remember sitting at the back of my window, in the window seat right at the very back of the visitor centre, which would love you all to come when it opens up again to welcome you back. And it really was, I just love, Gordon, I love a sherry matured whiskey. I've always loved a sherry matured whiskey, but there was just something else going on in here.
Yeah.
That lovely, the citrus, that sort of sharper notes to it in a nice way, and that shortbread and a bit of citrus. It just was, what is going on in this glass?
It's like Gordon was reading the tasting note there. That's unbelievable. So the other thing I think,
where is it? Look at this.
the thing I really love is the difference between the 10 and the 12. The 10 is more sherry forward, actually. It's got more sherry influence in it, whereas this has that little bit of bourbon cask first fill, which drives a little bit of that almost slightly fresher sort of, more sort of citrusy, sort of sweeter style. I love the difference between the two of them, and they're great whiskies. And I just that's what I love about them. And this 12 is utterly fantastic. The other thing is, I love a highball. Have you ever? A highball is one of the best ways to drink whiskies. It's a sort of, you just mix it with good ice and some soda, and it's just a wonderful drink. And this 12-year-old works so well as that type of drink. So yeah, let's have a little taste. If you've not had a taste already, let's get into it, as they say.
Folks, Lauren, Blair, and folks at home, Slàinte.
Slàinte.
And welcome and thank you for coming to the first of many tastings this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Slàinte.
I am working in the morning and it's so hard to pace myself because it's so delicious.
I know.
Yeah. So we've got people in from Brazil. Lewis, good morning, afternoon, not sure. London, Jill Yoga's in. doing some yoga today. We've got Minneapolis, Tony from Minneapolis,
Oh,
Marshall
great.
from Alabama. I know you guys can't, it's really hard to get these kind of samples out to you, but we'll be doing more in the US. You will see more of us in the US. So
And
fantastic.
Gordon, just something that Jennifer Beattie there has reminded me of. She said, my dad would have been 100 this month if he'd still been around. He would have loved the 12-year-olds. And on International Whiskey Day, it really is about raising a glass to your dad, to people that have loved whiskey or shaped whiskey, either from the present day or the past. So I'd love to hear on the comments of people that you'll be raising a glass to, whether, Jennifer, it's your father or whether it's somebody from the industry that has been and left an indelible mark on our beloved whiskey. So that'd be something to talk to.
Absolutely. It's just a great day, as all days are, but a great day to celebrate all those people that love whiskey and just enjoy it and drink it and share those stories, because let's face it, that is what this is all about. So coming on to those stories, let's go to Blair. Blair, so you're clearly just a couple of years younger than me, and I mean, obviously you've been clearly just slightly younger. What is your journey to where you are now? I mean, a lot of people, we get asked a lot about working at whiskey distilleries, how that work, how do you get into it? What's your story about how you got to what you're doing now?
It was a little bit of chance, would you say it? As with a lot of people, I guess, you're not born a whiskey lover. Sometimes you just find it along the way. And I was lucky enough that one of my good friends, we went to school together, worked as a distillery ambassador at the distillery, and he gave me a little heads up, and he said, how would you fancy it? So at the time, I wasn't doing much. So I became a tour guide to start with, and then through speaking to Robbie, the production manager, and just learning all about the distillery, that's pretty much where it led on from there. Similar to say with Lauren. And after that, the rest is history. Just kind of moved into the warehousing, and that was that. And
so just to explain to people, what do you do day to day now at Glengoyne?
So official title would be warehouse team leader. So basically that just involves everything in the day-to-day runnings of the Glengoyne warehouse. So anything that Lauren's going to make up in the still house, that's getting passed down to me, and then we're all to do with the maturation. So you are filling it into casks, you're moving casks around, because there's some warehousing. It's not that much warehousing at Glengoyne. If you look at Tamdhu, for example, we've got a lot more. So, but there's still quite a lot of casks sitting there, isn't there? Absolutely. I mean, just now, total casks on site, we've maybe just got about over 10,000 casks, give or take. In comparison to some sites, yeah, it may be quite small, but for us, it's that's enough. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'm maturation is the bit I love, because it's the bit that just makes it whiskey ultimately. Absolutely. from a law perspective. And obviously we'll come back to a little bit about the difference between the casks and the warehouses and things like that. Lauren, intrigued about your story, because what I love about working for a family business is that we have people who have been tour guides, people who've worked at Glengoyne, who are now working all around different parts of the business. But you have made a slightly different path. So could you just explain how that came about and explain to people what you now do?
Yeah, of course. So it's very similar to Blair. I started at Glengoyne as a tour guide. It was actually supposed to be a stepping stone job, because I was actually on my route to do something else.
Which was what?
Actually, it was my own company, actually. I had a popcorn business, and I needed a kind of part-time job just to bridge the gap before I went full-time with that company. So my sister at the time worked as a tour guide, same as Blair, got a heads up that they were looking for staff. Luckily enough, I got hired. And started off as a tour guide, and just from working there, I fell in love with the industry. I never came from a family of drinkers. Nobody in my family even, none of them drink. So I really didn't know anything about whiskey. And I came into the industry and I fell in love, really. That's how you can put it. I thought, why in school do people not teach you that you can be a whiskey maker? This is ridiculous. I didn't want to be a lawyer or a doctor. And I got to the distillery and I fell in love with it. and I went away and studied the GCD certificate from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling. Blair's also done that qualification as well. So went away, studied, sold the company that I was supposed to go full-time in, and went full-time at Glengoyne instead, because I thought this is just where I'm supposed to be with my life.
And how long ago was that?
So I started at Glengoyne in 2015, so
okay,
a wee while ago now.
6 years now.
Yeah, so we sat our exams, and luckily the two of us passed.
Well done, you two.
We sat it on the same day, and then in 2017 I was lucky enough to get a full-time job in the still house in the mash house production, and I was actually the first ever girl to be an operator in a still house, so I'm quite proud of that achievement.
Absolutely,
really,
well done.
That I'm quite proud of, but also for Glengoyne as well, because they just give everyone a chance. They're such, a great company that to take a chance on 2 tour guides that were keen and sat exams, and to give them a job is fantastic.
But that is Ian MacLeod Distillers, and that's brilliant.
That is
full marks to you guys as well. Absolutely. Go, Mr. Dallas. Yeah.
On that, what did you say on that point? For those that know your Glengoyne trivia, Blair is effectively a Lowlander, and Lauren is a Highlander.
Yeah.
If you know your trivia about Glengoyne, you'll know what I mean.
Of course, yeah. That road makes all the difference, and of course, Blair. As much as I like to tell people that we're distilled in the Highlands and matured in the Lowlands, those 50 meters make such a difference to the whiskey, don't
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So that's so we've got a mash, which is the beginning of the production, if we're honest. It's as important as any other part. So one of the things that is just explain very quickly what you would do during a mash, if you could. So you're taking the ground down malted barley, and then what do you do with it?
Yeah, so my job is essentially to take that ground down malted barley that we call grist, and I'm basically going to take the sugar from it. So my job is really sugar extraction to then take on to fermentation. So I have a huge, big, massive copper pot, really, called a mash tun, if no one's seen it. We have a semi-lauter tun at Glengoyne, and I take 4 tons of this grist, and I takes me 1 hour to get it into the mash tun, along with a water of 63.5 degrees Celsius. It's very specific temperatures to activate the enzymes in that barley to get the sugar out of it. So I add 3 stages of water to the same barley to get as much sugar extraction as I can. And what I've ended up with is something called wort. So it's basically just really sweet, sugary barley water. It tastes delicious. Always have a little taste. You got to check your work, make sure it's good. And then I take this wort through to fermentation to our 6 Oregon pine washbacks, which, if no one has been to the distillery, look up a picture of them. They are magnificent to look at. They're majestic. So I put the wort into these washbacks, and I add 20 kilograms of yeast. Our yeast comes in sacks. We don't use liquid yeast or anything at Glengoyne. So it just comes from a big cold store fridge. Chuck it on my shoulder, carry it up the stairs, put it in the washback, and leave it to ferment for 56 hours minimum. And then obviously is my job.
And then that beer after that goes and gets distilled. That's effectively the next process.
Yeah, so I officially make the wash and then pass it on to the stillman, who will then distill it into the spirit. Yeah.
And do you ever drink it, Lauren?
Yeah. Should I say that? I don't know.
Is Robbie watching?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
And I think one of the things that Glengoyne's really, really known for is its slow production. Yeah, we distill very slowly, but we ferment for a long time. We create a clear wort as well. So Lauren's always looking to create a wort that's got a clarity in it, because that helps us with our fruity style going forward. Because we have no smoke, no peat, we want to create a very fruity spirit. And I think that's summed up a little bit, as you guys will know, about if you think of Glengoyne, we can produce about 1 million litres of alcohol a year. That is not very big in the grand scheme of things. It's a small site. But actually, if we changed our processes and heated things up quicker and moved a few things and made it more efficient, we could probably produce 20% more. But ultimately, in 10, 15 years' time, our 10 and 12-year-olds will not taste the same because that fruitiness would not be there. And
It would
that's
lose our essence.
exactly. We would lose our signature. We'd lose our essence. So that's why slow production is really, really important to us. And those people who have been will know that. Gordon, anything? We'll come to Blair in a minute. Yep. Anything happening in the room? What's happening out there? What is everybody saying?
Comments coming in there. I love Jill's as well. Jill Yoga, how are you doing? Jill was saying her granddad, wow, used to work at the Johnny Walker distillery in Kilmarnock. Not quite the same as Glengoyne, but she'll be raising a glass to him. James Nielsen has given us a wee shout out from Shetland. So how are you doing? Steve as well. Steve's raising a glass to his dad, who sadly passed away 11 years ago. But yeah, I know he would love that evening. And our thoughts, of course, are with him. And Lewis Oliveria, he was at Glengoyne 6 years ago, which if you just listen to Lauren, was when she started. So you may have taken him on tour. In fact, I started with you, Lauren. You may have done Lewis's tour. So that's a couple of the comments there. Lots of lovely. Just keep the comments coming in. Lots of lovely
I'd like to
comments.
Shout out a couple of people to Gus Rennie. Fabulous to Anne-Marie Simpson. Good to see you on. I'm glad you got your whiskies. Enjoy it with the Ian Burnett Highland chocolates as well. Great to see so many people in and enjoying the 12-year-old. So I was actually thinking one of the things about the whiskies tonight, we've got 3 whiskies that involve very if you look at historically, don't really have a lot of sherry cask maturation in them at all. And that's very un-Glengoyne-like. You think, I mean, the 12 has some sherry cask, as does Legacy, but if you think of our 10 or 18 or 21, a lot more sherry casks. And Glengoyne is renowned for sherry casks. But the first 2 whiskies tonight, the 12 has a little hint of bourbon, but the next whiskey, the Legacy Series Chapter 2, has the most amount of bourbon casks we've ever put into a core range whiskey. So we'll move on to that one very shortly. But just coming on to you, Blair, when you're filling a bourbon cask and you're filling maybe different bigger sherry casks, and bourbon casks are all the same size, are they not?
They are lovely and equal. Yeah, they all come in nice and standard. It's the way to go.
Unlike sherry casks, would that be fair?
Unlike sherry cask, yeah, you can get a bit of variation in them. They can be a bit shorter, a bit dumpier. They come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah. And would you say, in your experience, what kind of maturation do you get? Quite a consistent maturation out of a bourbon cask?
I would say with the bourbon cask, it's quite a steady maturation. I would say they all come out pretty equal, because, as you know, the bourbon cask will be made of like American oak coming from the States. So you're going to get a very unique flavour profile from those casks. Whereas if you go on to your butts, your sherry butts, they might be American oak or they might be European oak. So you'll get some variations in flavour there. And also it might be some different sherries. So for instance, at Glengoyne, we've got our Oloroso sherry casks, which are beautiful when they come in, lovely smell of them. But sometimes we do get some Pedro Jimenez casks in, so you get that really rich, heavy flavour and aroma from them. And even some Palo Cortado casks we had in not a month ago, which was really nice to see as well. So yeah, you get differences from both of them.
Fabulous. That's fabulous. I mean, I'm a big fan of bourbon whiskies. I've drunk a lot of bourbon. So, when these casks come over, they are very consistent. They do drive a much more consistent level of maturation. The color is generally lighter than a sherry cask, but that doesn't mean anything really. Color in whiskey is all about the type of oak you're using, if we're honest. So that's great. Let's move on to the Legacy Series Chapter 2, and I'm going to go to Mr. Dallas. Mr. Dallas, we started this series with Chapter 1, which was a very different whiskey to this, and we'll come on to the whiskey in a second. But story-wise, can you just tell us about initially the first Legacy and where we are now?
That's right. Like we're trying to do with National Whiskey Day, the Legacy series was just celebrating someone from our past and putting them on the spotlight to say thank you very much for impacting Glengoyne. And the first person we chose was really one of the guiding lights of the Victorian era. Cochrane Cartwright was a distillery manager at Glengoyne under the era of the Langs, and we credit Cochrane Cartwright for introducing sherry cask maturation to the story. The bosses, his bosses, the Langs, were bringing in sherry, bottling it and selling it around Glasgow. They made him manager at Glengoyne, and of course it didn't take long for those sherry casks to make their way to Glengoyne post 1876, and we believe he slowed the stills down as well. Previous incumbents still had a touch of the moonshiner about him. Cochrane was the real modern distiller, so we believe he slowed the spirit down and also started to really systematically mature in sherry casks. So the first Legacy series was all about that lovely richness and dark colour of the sherry casks. And this one, Legacy 2, my goodness, the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And this really is to highlight the current owners, the Russell family, who own Ian MacLeod Distillers, who own Glengoyne. And they introduced the bourbon barrels to the core range whiskies, Gordon. And I'm sure you can take on the story from there, but it was a wonderful decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, when the distillery was taken over, it was predominantly, there was only a very small single malt range of a 10, a 17, and a 21. And basically, over the years, that range has been increased, and we're still kept the strong sherry element that Glengoyne's famous for. But bourbon casks are great in their own right as well. And Glengoyne, with its fruity spirit, really suits bourbon casks. So Peter Russell, his son Leonard, who's the current managing director, really could see that sort of want to increase the range, bring in different types of casks, and we really see the benefit of that. So Legacy Series Chapter 2 is a real thank you to the Russell family. And I can just say, I think I'm speaking on all of us, that working for such a wonderful family business really is great in this day and age, that we can work for some great people. So cheers to them.
Yeah.
And that is just, and that really is, and that really is the essence of this whiskey. And so where the first Legacy Series Chapter 1 was European oak, forward and rich and dark, this, I think, showcases that beautiful spirit in a very different way. And for me, when I nose this, it doesn't first, it's 48%, but you would not know it's 48%. And that's a credit to the spirit that Lauren's involved in producing, but also the quality of casks that we use. And I think the combination of the two elements, Lauren's part and Blair's part, is really, really essential to making great single malt. So what do we think, guys, on the nose? Oh, beautiful, isn't it? Very tropical. I'm getting peaches and those mangoes, those types of things.
I get light vanilla.
There's a little vanilla, yeah, for sure. I mean, why do we get vanilla out of, vanilla is it's a used word a lot in whiskey, and people always go, why is there always vanilla in it? It's all to do with the oak. Is that not right, Blair? And Lauren?
Absolutely. Obviously, this one with the more kind of bourbon focus on it from your American oak, you've got a lot of vanilla inside the oak. And obviously over in the States, they'll char the casks as well. So not only is the kind of charcoal, that active carbon layer, going to kind of smooth out the spirit, but it also brings forward those classic notes of vanilla, your bananas, that kind of sweetness that comes along to the whiskey. And that's personally why I love bourbon cask whiskies.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so, Lauren, from a spirit perspective, we look at the sort of production side. If I was to say, what's a characteristic of the new make spirit, the overriding characteristic, what would you say that would be?
So our new make spirit, well, as we know, it's very, very fruity, a little bit fainty as well, but it's essentially very light and very fruity, and that comes from our very, very slow distillation times. We're distilling at only 5 litres per minute. We've got boiling bowls on our stills, so all that extra copper contact is helping to produce all that extra fruitiness with the esters as it distills. So that's what our new make is essentially looking for in the still house.
Yeah, and of course, when you mature in bourbon, you get a slightly lighter maturation. You don't get the same impact maybe as you would from a European oak sherry cask. So you get more of that spirit changing over a period of time as well. So, that's why I love this whiskey. It's really, really vibrant, very alive, very fruity, very tropical. Really, really lovely.
You can almost get some syrup as well.
Syrupy, yeah, lovely
Yeah.
richness to it. Phil's saying it's amazingly smooth. He's getting vanilla for sure. Simon White, pear drops. Yes, absolutely. Glenn Wilson, he says this is absolutely superb, and it really is. I mean, you said, Gordon, we're used to doing a certain style of maturation, but this is just something a bit different. Why wouldn't you when you can do it?
Absolutely,
outstanding.
right. And so, to produce a whiskey that is a limited edition, but it's the most bourbon we've ever used, and it's of this quality at 48%. And I mean, I'm I'm sure you guys are, Blair and Lauren, but I'll ask you, when you drink whiskey, will you add water? Depends how you feel, up to you. I mean, it's totally up to you, of course it is, but do you always add water? Does it depend on the dram, how you're feeling?
I think usually for myself, personally speaking, I usually have it neat. If it's a little bit closed up, maybe a few drops of water. But I think, as you said, if you're coming home from a blistering hot day in the warehouses, it's nice and sunny. Maybe that highball is the way to go. Something refreshing,
Yeah, Lauren.
Of course. Sorry, Gordon. Just on that there, Blair. But you do add water, not personally, but you do add water in the warehouse, in the filling store.
Of course.
So there is water added at that stage in the process. Just could you explain that?
Yeah. So the stuff that the guys are making up the road is insanely strong. So it'll come down to us maybe about
That's the Highlander.
70. Yeah, that's it. And it comes down to us, lowlanders. We need to bring it down a wee bit. So we reduce it down to about 63.5 is what we're aiming at, which we think is the kind of perfect cask strength, basically the vatting strength that we put into the cask set. So yeah, we'll add some water in to bring it down from about 72%, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so something like, of course, the Legacy 48% has also been reduced to 48% as well. So we've added water to it. But Lauren, is there a particular way that you like to drink whiskey, or does it, like everybody? People ask me, what's my favorite whiskey glass? What's my favorite? I said it depends on so many factors. So
yeah, I'm kind of the same, to be honest. It just depends. There's some whiskies that I like neat. There's others that I feel a little bit of water, for example, or cask strength batches. I really like a little drop of water in them. I think it helps just open them up. And for my palate, specifically, I prefer them with a drop of water for that range. With the likes of this Legacy and the 12, I don't think I need any water in them. I think they're delicious as is. When I try a new whiskey, though, I will always try it for the first time with a drop of water, because then I can see what I prefer. I wouldn't just try it neat and then that would be me. I would experiment with them as well, because otherwise you're not going to know exactly what it likes. And I love how also when you add the water, it can open up something completely new that maybe you weren't aware of before. It can release a new aroma or a new taste on your tongue or something
Definitely.
like that. So I think it's important. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I think it's just important to trial and see what works best for you.
Absolutely.
I'll jump in a couple of questions for both of you. William Welsh is asking the approximate age of Legacy. People would want to know what the approximate age is.
Well, I think the best way to describe that would be, I mean, if you look at our range, we've got the 10, the 12, the 18, the 21, we have a lot of age in our range. What this whiskey allows us to do is to bring together exceptional casks through a variety of ages. So if we've got a really good, 8-year-old whiskey, it will drop into there because John, our master blender, wants to do that. So actually this gives John a freedom that, we can produce whiskies that are centered on a particular style. And if a great 8-year-old or a cask can fit into that, then we'll do that. But the reason we don't put an age on it is so that we can have a consistency throughout this range in terms of it being the same, focused tasting whiskey. I think that's the most important aspect of this. Average age, I would go maybe average age. I mean, I would go somewhere between 8 to 10 to 11, somewhere like that, I would guess, because I don't think we'll be, and Blair, you'll be able to, but we're certainly not generally bottling much whiskies under that sort of age range, really. I mean, those are 8 to 10. Nothing's much younger than 8, probably even 9 or 10.
Yeah, I'd say it's edging up towards the kind of 10-year-old. We wouldn't send something out for us that young. And judging by the colour, obviously, we're always natural colour at Glengoyne. You're only going to get that kind of colour from that little bit of time that we're putting it in the casks for.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And now the other thing, just as we all enjoy this, for the beady-eyed amongst you, you all may have noticed that in the last sort of 6 months or so, Glengoyne has changed somewhat a little bit, and we've refreshed the label. We've made it look a little bit, I think it's a great improvement. It's an evolution, not a revolution. That's a phrase that I stole from some other presentation I heard the other day, but I like it. So that refresh goes through the whole range, and actually, for me, closes the loop on our sustainability at the distillery. Now, you guys work there every day. Can you give us an insight into some of the sustainability features that we do at Glengoyne, which sets us apart? Lauren,
yeah, well,
first?
we can start at the mashing side. It's obviously one of the first stages of the process. So there's no wastage at all. We are recycling our water from the mash. So I previously said I add 3 waters to my mash tun to the grist to extract all the sugars, but it's only the first 2 waters that I send forward to fermentation. I actually keep the 3rd water back and I store it in a heating tank, and that will actually be recycled to become the first water of my next batch. So that obviously is a nice sugary water. Why waste it? We might as well use it. And it also saves on energy as well, because it's already been preheated. So I don't need to waste energy with steam to heat that water back up to start again. So that's something we do. Our spent grist at the end is called draff, and we sell that on to the local farmer and it becomes cattle feed. So again, they love it. Absolutely nothing wasted at all. They come and pick it up and take it away. From our still side, we have our pot ale, which goes to become, it used to go to the fields for the farmers, but in the last 3 years, it's actually been going to a biomass plant just down the road. It's the same farm that takes the draff, and they actually turn it into biofuel, and it helps power the houses in the local villages.
And pot ale is the sort of the remnants of the first distillation.
Yep, so it's spent wash. So you take the low wines off the wash for redistilling, and it's the spent wash. That's what pot ale is.
Very, very good. And Blair, obviously we have down by your sort of part, we've got the reed beds, and we've got the bees, of course. Can't forget the bees. I think when what do the reed beds do? What's that element for us?
So the reed beds are focused mainly on the second distillation. So anything that's left over from that, so that's going to get sent down to the reed beds, and once that filters through it naturally, basically what's coming out at the end is pure water. So it's removing anything that doesn't want to go back into the earth, and that actually lets the reed beds grow. So there's actually a nice video on our social media where you can see a kind of time-lapse photography of the reed beds growing throughout the season. It's quite remarkable, actually.
Absolutely. It is very, very good. And it's a hive of sort of wildlife as well, which is fabulous.
Well,
and I think, you can.
I just wanted to have an interruption because Mr. Robbie Hughes, the distillery manager, has been in touch. I just thought that might be something we should just. He says, "I'm just checking. Am I currently paying Blair and Lauren overtime rates for this? They're doing very well. They've been paying attention. Well, actually, it's not overtime. It's double time. Did we not? Did they not get the memo? You guys are on double, if not treble time."
I thought Robbie might be checking up to make sure I make it into work at 6 tomorrow morning. That's what he'll be doing.
Cheers, Robbie. Cheers, my friend.
Yes, cheers, Robbie.
Fantastic. A few other things. A few people asking about Teapot Dram. That's going to be coming out later this year. Teapot Dram number 8, which we're very excited about. Which is a fabulous whiskey. Obviously, a great story, which we know, a fabulous story whiskey, and maybe for another day, but fabulous. I'm of this legacy. It's been in my glass for 10 minutes now. The tropical fruits are. Obviously, Blair, you're just slightly younger than me, but when I was younger, there was a drink called Umbungo, and this has that sort of element to it. Some people will know what I'm talking about.
I remember that.
Umbungo,
It's got that really tropical taste, which I really like.
Polo, what do you call it? juicy fruits, these lovely sweets, the pineapple ones.
Now, Gordon, can I
lovely.
just ask you to point to your beautiful array of Glengoyne boxes behind you? This is my point we brought up about sustainability. So the whole new range that you can see here from Gordon, which is the 10, the 12, the 18, and the Legacy and the Cask Strength, I think roughly in that order. The one of the things which helped us close the loop on our sustainability, it's all very well being a very sustainable distillery with 100% renewable energy and all the wonderful things you guys have described, but what now and what's great about the new packaging is it's 100% recyclable. It's made from pretty much 100% recycled material, if not, it's about 90%, and made in Scotland. So there's no flying of packaging or anything in that going on around the world. So we've really changed the footprint of our packaging, and to have whiskies all the way up to the packaging all the way up to the 21-year-old is fully recyclable. I think is pretty unique in this industry, but what I really would like to see is that it would be more of the norm, actually. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think that's the way the industry's going, Gordon. I think they're, probably stolen a march and setting out forward in advance of where I think the industry is going with the packaging. A lot of the industry is green and sustainable, and they're getting better, but this is a step ahead of, most labels. I think they'll go there. That will happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so good to see us leading on this and really creating a beautiful quality packaging as well. And it's made in Scotland, and it's all those things that we want to hear, which is great. So that was another major part of why we did our rebrand, our evolution rather than revolution.
I just love some of the comments. Can I just say, if I'm giggling away, it's not that I've had too much whiskey. I'm just having a look at the comments. And Alistair, by the way, just picks you up there. I'm a little bit, Gordon, just they drank it in the Congo.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
they did. So I love all the comments. We can't read them all out, sort of thing, but we're getting lots of love for the legacy there. That's what we're getting. Dave's asking what about the new bird logo, which I think is amazing. You can see it in Blair's and ours. Yeah, really nice.
Fabulous. There we are. Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Nice and clean. But it shows you, obviously, Glengoyne, Valley of the Wild Geese. So, yeah, that's fantastic. So, that's brilliant. And can I just say a big shout out to Craig Nichols. He is our shipping manager. He is, for me, it's an absolute pleasure. And for me and the team to be shipping our wonderful whiskies worldwide, which I would imagine are a little bit challenging at the moment, possibly due to the Suez Canal, one or two other things. But I know these guys work all through, they are fabulous at what they do in terms of, it's all very well producing our whiskies, but we've got to get them to market, and they do a fabulous job. So to Craig, thank you, Craig, and the team.
Yes. And keep your who you're raising a glass to tomorrow.
Yeah,
keep them coming in, whether it's somebody that's personal to you, or it's someone in a book you've read, or someone that shaped the sort of story of whiskey, a whiskey hero. If I don't read them all out, I'm going to read them later on anyway. So I'd love to get all your comments.
Now, I did see a question asking Blair and Lauren if you were on a desert island, what would be your Glengoyne that you would take with you?
Can it be a
That's a tough one.
Now, it's bottle, it's not person that works there, because obviously it'd be me. But it's actually liquid, not just any person from Glengoyne. I was buying you time there to think what you would choose.
And normally the 21 is normally my favourite, just because it's so rich and I'm a girl with the sweet taste. But I feel on a desert island that would just be too heavy, so I think I'll have to go for something lighter on a desert island. And maybe this new Legacy, actually, because I'm really enjoying it.
Yes. Yeah, desert island. Yep.
Yeah. Tropical fruits, that's what you want on a desert island.
Absolutely. Yeah. Umbungo and all that. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Blair, same. What would you go for?
Yeah, I think I'd go for the Legacy too. I think my favourite Glengoyne was the 15-year-old, sadly, and that's kind of gone now. But this is definitely bringing back the kind of bourbon, and that's kind of what I'm going for. So it'd probably be the new Legacy.
No, absolutely. No, okay, good, excellent, nice one. I just want to make a shout out to, I just see there a good friend of mine, Derek Mather, who's got an amazing restaurant in Wishaw called Artisan. It's been a tough time for the hospitality industry, but it's great to see Derek excited about opening up and excited to let his customers try our drams, which we're very excited about. So Derek, I love it. It's great to see you on.
And can I just say, Derek Mather was one of the guests on a wonderful podcast called Whiskey Unscripted. So Derek, you were great on the podcast, and I would recommend anyone watching tonight to go to Whiskey Unscripted and try and find Derek Mather from Series 1. And of course, many others.
And if you've not ever heard of Whiskey Unscripted, oh my Lord, are you missing out? You will not ever want to watch Netflix. You'll just want to listen to Whiskey Unscripted. Right. So now I'm going to talk about this last whiskey a little bit, because we did a tasting last year, didn't we, called Casks Unlocked, Gordon? With we had some guests on from Whiskey Magazine. We had Blair Bowman, we had Rosalind Erskine from The Scotsman as well, and we had Robbie Hughes as well, and it was an interesting tasting in terms of we were selecting out of 4 casks. And it was about September, I think, last year, and the front runners was the Madeira cask initially, and then right at the end the port cask, because a lot of the panel liked the port cask, so maybe that swayed a few people's opinions, but the port cask came through. But right behind it was the Madeira cask. So this whiskey is that Madeira cask. So we're very excited about this. This is very popular. And before we go anywhere, I just want to talk to Blair very quickly. These are very rare casks, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, rare as they come. I was thinking on it the other day. We had originally 5 of these Madeira casks in the warehouse. And since bottling this one, we only have 1 left. That's how rare it is.
Oh, right. And so now the next question, and I'm going to come to Gordon Dallas about this. Mr. Dallas,
come on.
Talk me through Madeira.
It's a wonderful island. I tell you what, if you want to stroll down the old town of Funchal, you could pop into the No. 7 Museum, which is Cristiano Ronaldo's museum. So, that's a wonderful place. Madeira, 280 odd miles off the coast of Africa, an archipelago of islands, lots of fun facts about Madeira. I've spent all day, you only can give me 30 seconds, but did you know, Gordon, that the Declaration of Independence in 1776 was signed by Thomas Jefferson and the other Americans with a glass of Madeira? It was a wonderful.
Know that.
Jefferson's favourite tipple. They had very quickly worked out if you put spirit into wine, it would make the wine indestructible. The Madeirans and the Portuguese were one of the first people to work that one out, and that one was the wine that landed on the American East Coast and that the settlers were enjoying. So there's a lovely fun fact.
So what is the difference between Madeira? What's the difference between Madeira wine and sherry?
Not a huge lot, because it is fortified wine, but it's just made slightly differently. For those students of sherry, Oloroso sherry, which we use in maturation, has been oxidized, in that when you're adding spirit and it's brandy into the sherry, if you want to oxidize the sherry, you add it at a higher strength and it kills the yeast. And then the sherry touches the atmosphere and that's oxidized and becomes browner, richer, nuttier, more caramel notes. But what they do in Madeira now, different from the sherry in Spain, is they heat it up. And they put it into tanks, and some of the cheaper Madeira is heated in tanks for between 3 and 6 months. And some of the very expensive Madeira is heated in warehousing with the heat up. So there's a heating element, and that makes it even more richer and fuller and darker, brown sugar, honeys, and that is Madeira, and that's how it differs from sherry. So fortified wine, and it goes in and seasons these wonderful casks that we've got at Glengoyne.
Now, can I just say, before we go any further, this is a first fill American hogshead, which immediately Blair says that the amount of bottles in this will be a lot less than the port pipe one, which we had the last time. These bottles are now on the website for sale, should you wish to buy this. But this is cask 911. There's Gordon with, look at the color of that. Look at the color of that. This is cask 911, first full American oak hogshead that's been seasoned with Madeira wine for 18 months. It was filled on the 25th of April 2007 and has been matured in cask for 13 years. Now, what it firstly is immediately noticeable, even just from that description, is again, seeing a fully matured Madeira cask is pretty rare. More used for finishing generally, something like that, Blair, but this is a great fully matured whiskey.
Yeah, on the finishing note, I mean, it was the same with the port pipe that we had in the tasting. Usually you'll see a port finish or a Madeira finish, sometimes even a rum finish. But to see casks like this that went their full maturity in the one cask is actually very, very rare.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Lauren, you know, obviously when you see that and you see your sort of spirit going into this diverse, I mean, I sort of count you as the spirit side and Blair's the maturation. It's probably, we're all one team, but you know what I mean? That spirit that you craft through your part, producing something like this after 13 years really just shows you the harmony of great spirit and cask, isn't it?
It is absolutely incredible. As you say, it's quite overwhelming to realise that a mash that I do that obviously doesn't look anything like spirit can produce something like this is just absolutely incredible. From my process at the very, very beginning to turn into this is just incredible. I had quite a proud moment just the other month in February because my first ever mash that I did legally became whiskey. It just turned 3 years old the other day, so I was very proud of that. So I can officially say now that I am a whiskey maker and not just a
no, absolutely fabulous.
That's great, Lauren.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's fantastic.
So, yes, it's incredible to see the journey of from the very beginning right through to something like this. It's incredible, and I can't wait to taste this because it smells delicious.
It's got a really sort of fruity, very luscious style. I actually pick up a hint of that, a little bit of a hint of vanilla, because I think the American oak, we spoke about that earlier, but this is a rich whiskey. This is a really, really luscious whiskey. Gordon, if we talk a little bit about, you know, Madeira in terms of the wine, that type of thing, obviously with the seasoning, this is a full-term maturation, so the oak type's still pretty crucial as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, as you say, that American oak is what we've really been experiencing the last two drams. So I'm hoping people will be getting an echo or getting a little taste of what has come before. That's just what's great. So the base notes we've had in the first two whiskies are there, but you had this Madeira, which is an unknown for me. I've never tried a fully matured Madeira cask whiskey until right now. So that's going to add that different layer. And as I said already in my notes of the Madeira, I'm looking at nutty, I'm looking at brown sugar, I'm looking at honey, and I'm hoping to get some of those in the whiskey here. So Slàinte, folks, for joining us again tonight. A real special whiskey.
Oh, this is. I've just sneaked a tasting. Oh, wow. Now, what strength is this again? I've just forgotten.
56.5.
56.5. And again, I'm not rushing to add water, but I reckon a drop of water would change this. But I'm loving that. It's viscous. It's smooth. It's viscous. It's got a sort of creamy. It's like it's got prunes and that type of flavor a little bit as well. Custard wrapped. You know, that sort of custard and like an apple crumble, sort of the richness. And oh god, rhubarb crumble. Yeah, with custard. This is fabulous.
And I've got a little macchiato in the back of it as well. A little something coffee-ish, maybe, you know, maybe moving into a wee bit of leathery. I don't think I've tasted a Glengoyne quite like that. That is something special.
Yeah. No. And you could see why this ran the port pipe, which was sensational as well. So close. I mean, there was people who were voting for the Madeira who were claiming the whole thing was a fix, and I was like, no, honestly, it wasn't a fix. But I mean, this is a fabulous, fabulous whiskey. So for us to now release that, we're very, very happy. And
any thoughts? Any thoughts out there? Just yeah, so nice. Andy, yep. He's added. Dave's added water, giving spiciness, nuttiness. Yes, absolutely is in there. Rob says a fantastic dram. Caroline Gibson. Hello, how are you doing, Caroline? Wow. Sultanas from Anne-Marie. Creme brulee, Sam E. I love it. Adam and Joe have just ordered 2 bottles.
Oh,
I feel
fantastic.
Like, we could easily be an auctioneer on this site, because I think this will be going. And,
I think this I would not be surprised. This pretty much goes tonight. I would not be surprised.
Graham Pictures has bought 2.
Chris Waugh,
I've just added a little bit of water, and I get that
yes.
creme brulee now coming through. I can see that.
Oh, I'll just do the same one.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do the same.
I don't know if it's my sweet tooth coming through, but also a kind of Turkish delight element through on it.
Yeah, I never. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not something I particularly liked, but I know what you mean. It made me. I didn't like Turkish delight. Chris Waugh, good friend of mine, Chris Waugh. Werther's Originals in there too. Well, yeah, absolutely. I think Yvonne Granger, we know Yvonne, perfect without water. Will the Madeira be available in the distillery shop? Graham, it is available online now. So you could get one now, should you wish. This is sensational. So just to tell everybody, the price is £175. Now, for a whiskey of this unique maturation, this rarity, full maturation, you will not see Madeira casks in full maturation really anywhere in the industry. So it's a brilliant whiskey, and it's really, really fabulous. And I'm so excited to be tasting it. And I remember it from 4 or 5 months, well, probably 6 months ago now, but absolutely fabulous. This is great. Anything else happening online, Gordon?
Yeah. Somebody, lots of lovely comments. A bit of toffee. Glenn, well, how are you doing, Glenn? Glenn, of course, used to work at, or maybe still does, when it reopens at Edinburgh Airport. Nice bit of toffee. Cranberries. There's a nice one. Look, that's cranberry notes. Chocolate. Lovely. I got a lovely bit of coffee. Rob
banana bread.
Saying this is the one he would buy.
It's fabulous. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Dave Rigby sort of sums up my life in whiskey, and maybe I know yours as well, Gordon. Tonight he had a budget of £100. He's just tasted that, and it's not going to happen. So I know we've all been there.
Unfortunately, that's life. But I mean, this is the kind of whiskey you would have for like a lot. You're not going to drink this every day. You're going to pull this out for a particular occasion, a particular day, maybe a Friday. No, I'm joking, but a particular event or something like that, and share it with some friends. And it's such a rare cask style to enjoy. But the best thing, and this is what I love, Blair and Lauren's spirit is coming through, and it's great cask. There's still Glengoyne in there. I can relate that back to even the Legacy, which is a very different style of whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
I've changed my answer as well. This is the one I want to take to my desert island.
I will change again. Don't worry, Lauren. Can I ask Blair? Blair, where was it sitting? I know it's a very much of a geeky question, but where was it in the warehouse? And does the position in a warehouse affect the maturation?
Absolutely. So this particular cask, I can remember exactly where it was sitting. It was in Warehouse 8. I don't know if you've ever been down in there. Lovely old dunnage warehouse. And you get that beautiful smell when you walk in the door. It was just sitting over on the right-hand side on a 2-high stove. So usually in the warehouses, we'll build them 3 high if it's hogsheads. The position of the cask can make a difference. Those ones right sunk down onto the ground are much cooler. So maybe the evaporation is going to be a little bit less. You might have a little bit less of the interaction or slower interaction. Then those ones closer to the roof might be a little bit warmer. You get that much more vigorous interaction with the wood. So positioning makes a lot of difference, and that's the key to a good master blender. That's John's pantry cupboard, I call it. you can go in there, pick out all his different whiskies, his different flavors, and then come out with something like this in the end.
It's just sensational. It really, really is just sensational. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point, and I think I've been to bourbon country a lot, and when you go to there, they have 27 cask high rack warehouses, which are 9 floors. And one of the major points to make bourbons different is where they position them. And obviously with the temperature differences, it makes such a huge difference to have a even in the middle at the bottom to on the outside at the top with the sun and the wind and all these things make a big difference in bourbon maturation. And that's the point I think people forget, even in a stone cold, dunnage style warehouse with 3 high, you still get a difference in location. And that's really, really important. So yeah. Fabulous. So, Lauren, you have a nickname, don't you? Or do you have a name that you've sort of made your own? Is that not right?
Yeah, it was actually a tour guide named Arthur that works with us that actually gave me this nickname when he went round on tours, and I just sort of adopted it because I liked it. And he used to call me the Mash Lass, but it's sort of become a thing now. So
is it your Twitter handle?
Yeah, I've done a few wee bits and bobs now and I always get referred to as the Mash Lass. So
absolutely fabulous.
I quite like it. It's quite a good
absolutely.
one. But it's actually a Glengoyne tour guide that gave me that nickname.
And if anybody's been on tour with Arthur, they'll know exactly who you're talking about. An unforgettable character, indeed.
Yes.
And just to put a wee full stop in Arthur's story, the owners were mentioned already, and with Legacy 2, we celebrate the Russell family for bringing bourbon casks in, and the Russell family, especially Mr. Peter Russell, who's about 94, Gordon, big horse racing fan. His daughter, Lucinda Russell, won the Grand National on a horse called One for Arthur. And the only person at the distillery who didn't put a bet on the horse was Arthur.
Oh, fabulous! And can I just say, I think Lucinda was the trainer. To be fair.
Yes.
But whatever, I like it. It's absolutely true. And another bit of news today that I think I should share with people is that our very own Stuart Hendry has just been voted in the Icons of Whiskey Awards Global Award announcement, which are the biggest awards in the industry, the Visitor Centre Manager of the Year.
Wow.
So to Stuart, who might be listening, probably watching the rugby, if we're honest. Well done to Stuart, fully deserved. So well done to Stuart.
Amazing. Just to say that, it's amazing what Stuart has done. Glengoyne is simply in testament. Lauren and Blair's been tour guides, but it is an amazing destination. And I'll throw it out to you guys, isn't it? When you see the reaction people have when they come, it's just a wonderful knowledge you pick up. But again, there's a little twinkle in all of our eyes. It's a bit of fun, and that comes down from Stuart as well. He's got that attitude. It is a fun tourist destination. It's not just about lecturing. Would that be right?
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely, from my experience, yeah, definitely. Quick fill in from Robbie Hughes. We'll be filling more of these casks this year at Glengoyne, but it won't be ready till 2035. So if you really like this, this is your last opportunity to get one for around about 14 years. Few other. We've got only about 250 bottles of these. Quick question, Gordon. He's probably talking about me and you, Gordon. Where do you think we'll travel to first? I, to be honest, would be happy to travel absolutely anywhere. At the moment, if I could fly to Edinburgh, I would do that. I mean,
nearest pub, but that makes me sound very bad. I think they're talking about countries. Yes. I know. I would love it. I had a wonderful time, and I see our friend Juha from Finland there. Wonderful time in the Scandics. So Sweden, Finland on the old Viking cruise lines would be great. I would do that tomorrow.
Absolutely. Here's another one, Jennifer Beattie. Lauren, my nickname is Gemstone Jenny.
I was just reading that comment there.
Nothing to do with jewellery. It's chocolate related. The mind boggles, but okay, fair enough.
I'd like an explanation on that, please.
Absolutely. So as we come to the end of this, guys, it's been great to have you on our on the Facebook Live for the distillery and for the first one of the year for International Whiskey Day. So Who would you be raising a dram to tomorrow?
Well, I am going to be raising a dram to Lizzie Stewart. She worked at, many people might maybe know her. She was the first ever female production operator in a malt distillery. She worked at Dalwhinnie for 31 years. And I went there for a tour before I moved into production. And I heard about her story and about how she wanted to influence other women into getting into the industry. And if she's watching this, I'd like to say thank you, because it made a big difference to me, because I thought if she can do it, and she did it when it was, you know, even more unlikely for women in that industry, I thought, why can't I do this? And that's what kind of made me put my foot to the floor, and that's where I am today. So I'm raising this to Lizzie Stewart of Dalwhinnie.
Lizzie Stewart, fabulous. And I'm great to hear that. I think we all share this. The more women in the whiskey industry, the better it is for everybody, because you know, whiskey's come a long way in 10 years, but it's still got further to go, and that's where we're at. But we are making progress. I think you would agree, Lauren. Yeah,
I'm following in Lizzie's footsteps at Glengoyne instead.
Absolutely. Blair, how about yourself?
Oh, it's a tough one, really. I mean, there's lots of icons that I look up to in the whiskey industry, but I think this year probably is that little bit closer to home, and it is the guy I was talking about earlier. His name's Gavin, the guy that I went to school with. He gave me the insight to the job, and if it wasn't for him, don't know if I'd be here today. Don't know if I'd be with my partner. Don't know if I'd be sitting having this lovely whiskey, chatting to you fine people. So to him, I'd say, yeah, that's who I'm raising my glass to. So to Gavin for that.
Cheers, Gav.
And I'll just raise you one, Gordon. You know what? I like my history. Here's a book. I'll be raising a glass to this gentleman here, Alfred Bernards, who in 1885 spent 2 years going around every distillery in Scotland, hopped over to Ireland and wrote a book about his visit around 149 odd distilleries. It's simply one of the founding or the cornerstones of whiskey heritage in Scotland. He's documented all the late Victorian era. Over 30 Campbelltown distilleries are in this book. Amazing. But there's now two. So
a fabulous book. A fabulous book. A couple of people from the chat. Phil Spencer, raise a glass to the stepfather who passed away with COVID. Absolutely. Definitely. Everybody enjoying the whiskies, and let's hope that we can get back and do it at the distillery as soon as possible. I'm going to raise a glass, I think, to... Yeah. I was very fortunate to work with Michael Jackson back in the mid-noughties. And I probably spent, I worked with him for a few months, and I spent a bit of time with him. And he was absolutely just an incredible gentleman, and really did help get whiskey to where it is now. And I really would just like to raise a glass to Michael Jackson, which is what this wonderful... day is about. And cheers, Michael. You've taught me so much about whiskey, so thank you. He would love this as well, I'm sure. So that's great. Anne-Marie Simpson, thanks you guys. Amazing event. All to Simpson's Gin Bar in Sutton Coldfield. If you're near Coventry, Sutton Coldfield, get down there when it opens up.
Can't wait. And
really, I think that's pretty much... anything else to add, anybody? I think we've had a great evening, haven't we?
Not really. Just was a couple. Yeah, there's just a couple of people saying they after tasting that they want to head to Madeira. And if you do, another fun fact is head to the #1 nightclub according to TripAdvisor is Revolution in the Old Town.
Revolution in Madeira.
According to TripAdvisor, Gordon, that's #1 nightclub.
I think Gordon, Blair, Lauren, we may have to do a wee trip to. Just check out the casks over there.
Yeah, let's go see how they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So look, everybody enjoy your weekend. Please stay safe. Keep in touch with us, because we will be opening up as soon as we can, and we want to welcome you back to the distillery safely. And let's just hope things keep moving in the right direction from us, for everybody. But let's just. It's
been very, very quiet without you all, so I'm looking forward to seeing you all back.
Exactly.
We're trying our best. We're trying our best to get bottles over to Europe. I know that's been one or two. I've seen the comments there. It's out of our hands at the moment, but rest assured, there's people frantically working out how to get bottles into Europe, into the European mainland.
And all I would say is, if you have got somebody in the UK, even a long lost friend that you saw 10 years ago, and you want a bottle of this, do it that way and make sure you get one, because you'll regret it. Or Gordon Dallas will buy you one. Brilliant. Lauren, thank you very much for Lauren and Blair. Thank you very much for taking your time out on Friday night to give us your brilliant input, your history, your Glengoyne stories. I think everybody's enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Not at all. Not at all. Mr. Dallas, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you.
Fantastic evening. Everybody, please enjoy International Whiskey Day with a whiskey, whatever whiskey it is. If it's a Glengoyne, great. If it's something else, just enjoy it. And have a great time. And we'll see you in about a couple of months at the next one, because we'll have something else for you to try and enjoy. So take care.
Yes, take care, folks. Slàinte.
Slàinte.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.